How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Weather SpongeBob 1000, and in this video, we're going to focus on the next major winter storm that's expected to impact the Midwest and Northeast and has the potential of dumping historic snow totals over a large area of the Midwest and Northeast, where many areas could experience over a foot of snow and potentially up to 2 feet, including the Northeast, which could be in for a historic Northeast blizzard based on the recent depictions of the computer models. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather economy. So let's begin by taking a look at the GFS forecast model, and we do see that, of course, a Midwest blizzard is expected to develop by the midweek, by around the Tuesday time frame. And of course, if we were to continue into the more long-term future, we see that now the GFS model has shifted its forecast to where now it wants to bring a significant snowstorm up along the East Coast, where New Jersey and even the bigger cities such as New York and Philadelphia get involved, and a little bit of Boston, as well as a pretty large portion of the Northeast experiences over a foot of snow in this scenario. And if we were to take a look at the European model wants to take an even more significant snowstorm to the Northeast. Of course, the European model also forecasts that there's going to be a significant snowstorm for the Midwest, where many areas could experience over a foot of snow, and some localized areas I wouldn't be surprised if you experience up to 2 feet of snow. And if I were to continue to move forward, we're going to see another low pressure system develop right around the Ohio River Valley as a result of how significant this jet stream dip will be right behind this low pressure system, which will create a very unstable environment for this major snowstorm to develop in the Northeast, which is going to be the same reason why this Midwest snowstorm will develop by the midweek, where we just see a very significant jet stream dip associated with this low pressure system on the backside, where we see a strong enough northerly flow to bring a lot of that Arctic air further southward, to where many places right around the western half of the United States will experience cooler than average conditions, and that will force the Arctic air to interact with the very warm and lightly dense air that's located right around the Gulf of Mexico, and that's going to force a lot of that very warm, moist, lightly dense air further upwards into the upper levels of the atmosphere to create a high amount of convection, a high amount of lift for enough thunderstorm activity to occur to the point where that rain will eventually transition into snow as a result of the cold temperatures in the northern portion of the Midwest and Northeast, and that will create potentially a major blizzard for a large portion of the northern United States. And we see the millibar pressure drop down to 980, so there is a high possibility there's going to be strong winds associated with this low as well. And if I were to continue to move forward, we see that the European model is forecasting quite a significant nor'easter, where we see the pressure drop down to the low 980s. So, of course, this would be a very strong wind maker as a result of the pressure being so low. That's going to force a lot of the air molecules to want to filter into where the air pressure is this low, right around 981 millibars. And we see just a heavy amount of snow. And not only that, look at how long it stays in the Northeast. This as a result of the fact that the European model is expecting a negative tilt with the jet stream. And what that means is that we're going to see the jet stream dip be so significant to the point where we're going to see the jet stream winds shift from more of a westerly direction to more of a southerly direction to a southeasterly direction that would steer low pressure system back into the East Coast, which would, of course, go against what typically occurs around the mid-latitudes, where we, of course, see all troughs move directly towards the west. Since the jet stream dip is so strong, we see a negative tilt with the jet stream, where the warm air filters in a little bit further northward than the cooler air mass, which creates a recipe not only for this low pressure system to steer back into the East Coast and stay for a much longer period, but that also creates a much more unstable environment, because because the cool air and the warm air is so misplaced during a negative tilt, that creates a highly unstable environment. And we see a heavy historic amount of snowfall associated with this, because this low pressure system just stays over the same area for several days, as there are some as the European model is forecasting close to, if not over, 2 feet of snow, and some areas over 30 inches of snow with this forecast, which would certainly be significant. However, And we do see that most of the heavy snow would be centered towards the interior northeast in the European model scenario, but we do see the interior northeast just gets pounded by heavy snow, close to 30 inches of snow in some areas of Pennsylvania, and a large portion, even New England gets involved with over a foot of snow, where Hartford, Boston gets close to, if not over, a foot of snow based on the European model scenario. New York City, it's I'd say you will experience around 36 inches of snow in this scenario, but you're right there to experiencing over a foot of snow, and any small shift in the forecast could mean the difference of New York City experiencing no snow or over a foot of snow. But taking a look at the GFS model, we see that the GFS model is forecasting the heaviest snow to be right up along the major cities of the East Coast, where let me show you guys the 18Z run, where as of the latest run of the GFS model expects that heavy snow to impact New York City in this scenario, and Philadelphia, where these areas experience close to a foot of snow, and even Connecticut gets involved. And this is where New England gets a little bit less involved in the GFS model scenario, as the GFS model wants to hone in the heaviest snowfall a little bit further southward, focusing in more on the southern portion of upstate New York, New Jersey, as well as Pennsylvania. But you see this still bringing a heavy amount of snow over a widespread area of the Northeast, which is very concerning. Now, you're probably wondering what will determine whether or not we're going to see a major blizzard in the Northeast, or if you'll experience the heaviest snowfall associated with this storm. So, taking a look at how far this storm is, it's still around 6 days out, so there's still time to iron out the forecast. But based on what the GFS and the European model is stating, they're both suggesting that there's going to be a significant snowstorm by the end of the week. So that's definitely something to pay very, very close attention to over the next several days. And that certainly does raise the certainty of this forecast. What really will determine whether or not the GFS or the European model will be the more correct scenario is how far south this jet stream dips, because if we were to take a look at the GFS model, we see that the jet stream dip is, while it is very pronounced, it's of course pronounced enough to create enough of an unstable environment for this significant snowstorm to develop. We don't necessarily see the jet stream dip be pronounced enough to the point where we see a negative tilt build, which would steer this low pressure system further eastward before eventually turning further westward before eventually turning east, which would of course prolong the impacts for Northeast and bring the heaviest snowfall more towards the western portion of Northeast, as well as areas further northward into New England, while areas such as New York City and Philadelphia would experience more of a rain event during the European model scenario if we were to see a negative tilt. However, the GFS model doesn't expect the jet stream dip to be as pronounced, so as a result, we see this storm bring more of the heavy snowfall to further eastward along New York City and Philadelphia, and moves to the east relatively quickly. But comparing that to the European model, we're going to see that the European model expects the jet stream dip behind this trough to be a lot more significant, where we see the cool air dip very far southward into the southeast, and that would set the stage for this negative tilt to build, where we'd see a highly unstable environment and see this storm again turn a little bit further westward before eventually taking that track to the east, which would prolong the impacts and bring much heavier snowfall and a more powerful storm along Northeast, where we could see up to 30 inches of snow in the interior Northeast. We still have to wait and see how significant this jet stream dip will be behind this low pressure system to determine who will get the heaviest snowfall, because of course the whether or not that negative tilt forms will play a big role in terms of the trajectory and where you'll experience a heavy snow, and of course how powerful this storm will be. Another thing we're going to need to keep in mind is how much cold air will be ahead of this trough by the time this approaches Northeast, because we're going to see a trough move right around eastern Canada that will bring the northerly winds further southward. And we'll see the cold air lock in place to a point where we could potentially see a significant snowstorm for many areas. But if there isn't as much cold air locked in place, thanks to the northerly winds associated with the low pressure system maybe being a little weak, then we'd see less likely of a chance of snow will be widespread. So still quite a bit of variables, but I'll keep you guys updated over the next several days. Just gonna need to pay attention to how significant this jet stream dip will be to determine the track of this low pressure system as it approaches the northeast, and how heavy and how much snow you'll experience from this potential major snowstorm and how powerful it will be. But I'll keep you guys updated. But just definitely stay on high alert throughout the northeast, and of course the Midwest. You need to start preparing, as it's certain at this point you're going to experience a significant snowstorm. For northeast, it's still uncertain. There's still a lot of days to go, but I'll keep you guys updated. It really all depends on how significant this jet stream dip will be. So I'll keep you guys updated over the next several days. But I'd say it's more likely that the northeast will at least experience a decent amount of snowfall associated with this low pressure system. Whether or not it will be historic has yet to be seen. But there is an increasing probability that this should be a significant snowstorm for the northeast as we approach the weekend. So definitely keep that in mind. Now, another thing I want to show you guys is the North Atlantic oscillation, where we do see now we're deeply in the negative North Atlantic oscillation phase, which means that we're more likely to experience colder and snowier than average conditions. I have been talking to you guys about this over the past several videos, but in case you missed it, expect colder and snowier than average conditions as we approach the mid to late December time period. So it makes sense why the computer models are forecasting such significant snowstorms for the Midwest and the Northeast. Now, take a look at my snowfall accumulation forecast over the next 7 days or so. Keep in mind that this forecast is certainly subject to change, but based on what I'm seeing with the computer models, a large portion of the Northeast would experience over a foot of snow, and I wouldn't be surprised if some areas experience over 2 feet of snow, especially in the interior Northeast, where I'm expecting northern New Jersey, Pennsylvania, the southern portion of upstate New York, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. You guys could experience over a foot of snow associated with this storm. We're definitely gonna need to wait and see the trajectory of this low pressure system, see how much warm air filters in, how much cold air will be locked in place, see how strong northerly winds will be to determine that. So I'll keep you guys updated, but where it's becoming increasingly likely a major snowstorm could impact the Northeast by this coming weekend. And taking a look at the Midwest, we do see a large area of the Midwest experiences 6 to 12 inches of snow. This includes Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and a large portion of the North Dakotas, and the northern portion of Nebraska could experience over a foot of snow. So definitely keep that in mind over the next several days, as it should be quite busy when it comes to winter weather for the northern United States. But anyways, guys, I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more about the content, and I hope you guys have a great day.